It is almost time for WWE to bring to us what they are calling the most stupendous WrestleMania of all time. That is certainly an opinion of theirs, but that is how they have decided to promote this year's two-night event, and we are here today to talk about that event. This is DerekJ Speaks, and today I am bringing you my predictions for WrestleMania 38 nights 1 and 2. A full card, I believe total is about 14 matches, give or take. Not sure if there's anything going to be added at the last minute. Pre-show wise, I feel like the pre-show for WrestleMania is taking place on Smackdown, but we will get into that momentarily. WrestleMania coming this year from AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. The first time back in the stadium since WrestleMania 32, where they announced a record-breaking crowd. Highly doubtful that they'll reach that capacity of a crowd for either night, let alone both nights this year, but I'm sure they will do their best to try. The build-up for WrestleMania this year, like I said, they put a lot of fancy, flashy words into it. The most stupendous WrestleMania. They're hyping up the big main event for Sunday night as the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. You know, what else do you expect them to say? They need to deliver all of these big words to hype up WrestleMania this year. And the words are definitely there, but the content that we have been receiving on TV these last few weeks leading into WrestleMania has been very lackluster in terms of getting many people, myself included, truly excited for the show. There are a few things that I am looking forward to. Stone Cold Steve Austin. I am very excited to see Stone Cold Steve Austin appear at WrestleMania and see what he is going to do with Kevin Owens. Seth Rollins has a mystery match. We don't know who he's going to wrestle, even though we all kind of do. I've been very invested in that story and am very intrigued to see how that surprise goes down. And despite seeing Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar wrestle time and time again, I do think that they are going to have a very good match here, and I honestly cannot really predict it. That'll be one of the more harder matches for me to predict when it comes time to do that. And there are a few other matches on the card that I'm looking forward to, some matches that I'm not, but it just seems that WWE had a vested interest in announcing and hyping up their big main events, establishing those matches, and the rest of the card just throw some stuff together. The fact that we have 2 celebrity matches plus a match involving a commentator on this show, very weird. And yet, no place on 2 nights, no place, no spot for your mid-card champions, the United States champion Finn Balor and the Intercontinental champion Ricochet, who are both going to appear on WrestleMania Smackdown, which is not really WrestleMania, but they put that word attached to Smackdown to make it sound sexier, I guess. As you probably know already, I'm sure you do, I'm sure by the time a lot of you hear this, Smackdown will either be already airing or you will have already seen it. But they announced for Smackdown that Ricochet would be defending his Intercontinental Championship against both members of Los Lotharios in a triple threat match, Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza. And Finn Balor, the United States champion, will be one man among several others in a Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Just very much a shame to see how far gone the mid-card championships are in WWE. You hold out hope thinking that they might care about them again one day, but then you see times like this where they're hyping up WrestleMania to be this big monumental event, yet there's no spot for your Intercontinental champion, no spot for the United States champion. It's a shame. Maybe the finish of the Battle Royal will come down to Finn Balor and Damian Priest, who is another sad story of how they had something with him and then they just completely bungled it. But maybe it'll come down to the two of them, and somehow that will set up a match between the two of them for the United States Championship at WrestleMania. Most likely on night 2, on Sunday night, because that Sunday night card needs all the help it can get. Maybe. But we don't know that for sure as of this recording. So as of this recording, we know that both champions will be appearing on Smackdown and not at WrestleMania. So very unfortunate. But we will go ahead and get into what is actually taking place at WrestleMania. So I'm going to run down both cards for both nights, night 1 and night 2, and I'm going to do so in the order that I predict the matches will take place. So not only am I predicting outcomes, but I'm also predicting match placement and match order. And as I go through these matches, I will be saying them in the order that I predict that they will be taking place. Starting with Saturday night, night 1, opening the show. I have been predicting that this match would open the show for the past few months, and that is the Raw Women's Championship match between Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. This, of the 3 women's matches being promoted for this show, this is the one that I was looking forward to the most. I still am looking forward to the most. It's the one with the more intriguing story, with the better build and better background behind it. You have Bianca Belair, who lost to Becky Lynch in 26 seconds or something like that at SummerSlam last year. Never really got her revenge, never really got her redemption from that. And so she worked her way back up into championship contention, and now she is here at WrestleMania to go up against Becky Lynch. Big time Bex, the woman who has been a champion every day that she has been an active roster member since she initially won the Raw and SmackDown women's titles at WrestleMania 35 back in 2019. So she's been champion. She vacated the title due to her pregnancy. She came back, first night back, she beat Bianca Belair, and she's been champion ever since. So a big deal around this match. And I believe Bianca's story arc, her redemption, is going to come full circle and is going to lead to her beating Becky Lynch on this show. I can't imagine any good reason for Becky to retain the championship. So my prediction here is we are going to get a new Raw Women's Champion in Bianca Belair. Up next, I think it will be the tag team match pitting the team of Sheamus and Ridge Holland with Butch at their side against Kofi Kingston and King Woods, the remaining members of the New Day. No doubt that this was originally going to be a 6-man tag team match where Sheamus and Holland would team up with Butch, formerly known as Pete Dunne, and they were going to go up against the entire New Day. But unfortunately, a few weeks ago, Big E suffered that devastating neck injury, so obviously that had to shuffle around these plans here. So now it is just a standard tag team match. It should be fine. I don't really have high expectations for it to be anything blow away, but I think it should be fine enough. I think they might throw the babyfaces a bone, give them a win at WrestleMania on behalf of their New Day brethren in Big E. So I'm predicting Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods to get the win here. I think up next we will have Happy Corbin versus Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre, look at this guy. Here's a guy who 2 years ago won the Royal Rumble match, went on to challenge Brock Lesnar and beat him in under 5 minutes to win the WWE Championship. Just last year, he faced Bobby Lashley and challenged him for the championship. He didn't win, but he was in one of the high-profile matches last year. Fast forward to this year, and Drew McIntyre's big WrestleMania opponent is Happy Corbin. But let me not disrespect him too much. This is the undefeated Happy Corbin. Remember that? When they just started randomly saying that and acknowledging that a few weeks ago or a few months ago on TV? No doubt. They only reference that, the fact that Happy Corbin is undefeated. First of all, Happy Corbin has barely wrestled since he became Happy Corbin. But the whole thing is that Baron Corbin has been undefeated. He hasn't been pinned. He hasn't submitted or anything like that since he took on this new struck of luck after he was broke Baron Corbin for majority of the summer when he hit it big in Vegas, and since then he has been happy Corbin and he hasn't been beaten. I'm sure the only reason they even announced that and acknowledged that is so it will mean more when Drew McIntyre wins this match. I don't think it will, but I see Drew McIntyre winning this match and ending this feud once and for all. So Drew's my pick, and then maybe Corbin and Madcap Moss, who have been showing a little bit of tension and dissension between the two of them on recent weeks on Smackdown. Maybe they'll eventually lead to a feud between the two of them. But as for Drew McIntyre, let him win here and move on to bigger and better things. The Smackdown Tag Team Championship match I have coming up next. The Usos defending against the team of Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. I like Nakamura and Rick Boogs. I'm a fan of their act. I think they are an entertaining duo, but I don't see them being the team to beat the Usos. I don't know what that team is. The Usos have already beaten all the major tag teams on SmackDown outside of them going to Raw, which they freely go to Raw very frequently. And I don't know if the outcome of this match is going to be an indicator of what the outcome of the main event on Sunday is going to be. I think isolated by itself, I can't see Nakamura and Rick Boogs being the ones to take the titles from the Usos, so I'm going to pick the Usos to retain their titles. Up next is one of the matches that I'm looking forward to the most between both nights of WrestleMania, and we don't even know what the match actually is. It is the big Seth Rollins WrestleMania match. Seth Rollins has been clamoring to get on the WrestleMania card for the last few weeks. He's been driving himself nuts trying to get onto the card. And finally, this past week on Raw, he met with Vince McMahon himself, who granted him his wish. Seth Rollins is officially on the WrestleMania card, but Vince did not tell him who his opponent would be. It is going to be a mystery that will be revealed on this night. So my only question about this is, are we going to hear smoke and mirrors, or are we going to hear the AEW theme song that Cody Rhodes is famous for having? Because there's not a doubt in my mind that Cody Rhodes is going to be the man who will face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. It's been the rumors, it's been in the reports for the last several weeks, ever since it was first announced that Cody Rhodes left AEW and that he was signing with WWE. The news kind of simmered down a bit, but it picked right back up when the reports came out that Rhodes officially did sign with the company and he was coming in at WrestleMania. They had several opportunities to bring him out on Raw in the lead up to this event, but they chose not to, and it was for the better. It'll be a much bigger pop, much bigger ovation, and a much bigger moment for him to come out for the first time at WrestleMania. So, yes, I think Seth Rollins' opponent at WrestleMania will be Cody Rhodes. Or will it? Because this past week, we got a report from PW Insider that Shane McMahon, who was reportedly sent home after the Royal Rumble a few months ago, he is now being brought back in for WrestleMania weekend. Now, that's all we know. We don't know what Shane McMahon is doing. He could just be being brought back to do backstage stuff, help out with his dad and all that, or he could be brought in as an opponent for Seth Rollins. If you remember some of those reports a few months ago where they were saying that Shane was sent home, there were also in those reports revealed that Shane McMahon was penciled in as Seth Rollins' opponent for WrestleMania. So this is not completely far-fetched. It's not like this news about Shane McMahon coming out is completely unrelated to Seth Rollins and this mystery opponent. I think that would be highly disappointing for many people, which is why I would half expect WWE to do it, just to piss the fans off and then throw them off and swerve them by bringing out Cody Rhodes. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do a swerve for the sake of doing that. I would just let it be Cody. I could see them maybe having Shane come out and then Rollins drops him or something like that, or maybe Cody comes out right after and then he takes out Shane. I could see that, but I personally don't really have much interest in that. Everyone's expecting it. They've been chanting the man's name every single week for the last several weeks on Raw. Just give the people what they want. Bring out Cody Rhodes with the pomp and circumstance and the big fanfare, and have him face Seth Rollins in what I would expect to be a very good match. A match that I believe Cody Rhodes will win. So my prediction is not only that Cody Rhodes will be the mystery opponent, but he will also win and beat Seth Rollins here at WrestleMania. And as for after WrestleMania, what's the future hold for Cody Rhodes back in WWE? WWE basically has an obligation to treat this man like royalty, treat him like a king if they want to have any type of positive perception of themselves in comparison to AEW, and show many talents in AEW that, hey, coming back to WWE or signing with us is not that bad as has been reported by many people who have left WWE and have gone to AEW. The tide can turn back in their favor, perception-wise, to a certain level. So they owe it to themselves and their reputation to treat Cody Rhodes like royalty when they bring him back. Could that mean main event status? Could that mean future world championship runs? Potentially. But as for just WrestleMania alone, I do believe we're going to see the return of Cody Rhodes to WWE, and he will beat Seth Rollins. Next up is the Celebrity Tag Team match. It is the Mysterios, Rey and Dominic, the father-son duo, taking on The Miz and Logan Paul. I can't really say I care much for this feud, this match. It could be entertaining if it's anything like the match involving Bad Bunny last year, a very similar spot for The Miz 2 years in a row at WrestleMania, which I'm sure is for a reason, because Miz thrives in this role. So he plays his role very well, and that's why he gets put into this position. But if it's anything like that match, then this one should blow us all away. I don't have that type of expectation on it, only because I just have not really cared for the story overall that much. But they could surprise us. So the outcome of this match, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Mysterios are going to win, but I think as they win, The Miz will blame Logan Paul for the loss, and that will lead to Logan Paul probably punching or clotheslining or dropping The Miz in some way to get the big pop. He'll raise the arms of Rey and Dominic, expecting this big ovation from the crowd, who I'm sure will just boo the hell out of him, because that's what the crowd does every time Logan Paul appears on WWE television. It happened last year at WrestleMania, it happened over the summer, and now I'm sure it's going to happen now. It's been happening every time he's appeared on Raw in the last few weeks. So even if he does drop The Miz and raises the arms of the Mysterios afterwards, I still think he'll get booed. But yes, Rey and Dominic for the win. After that, the Smackdown Women's Championship match. A lot of people probably expect this to be the main event of night one, but I don't think so. I think it's going to go on right before the closing segment of WrestleMania night one. Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I want to be nice when talking about this particular feud. I just have not gotten into it, and I think that's as nice as I can possibly be. It just has not really captured my attention, my investment. No, I just have not really cared. Charlotte Flair, she's done what she can, and Ronda is, I'm sure she's trying, but the story, what they've had these women doing, I can't really get into it. The whole thing of Charlotte saying that Ronda is a one-trick pony and that she can only beat people with an armbar. Okay, it's very standard stuff, and them trying to portray the story that Charlotte Flair cannot and will not ever tap out, even though we have consistently seen her tap out to several people since coming to the main roster, let alone if you go back to her NXT days. I watched the entire year in 2016 of Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair wrestling every week, trading the championship back and forth. I think I'm pretty well aware that Charlotte Flair has tapped out before. So that story and the promos that these two women have been doing, particularly from Ronda, who just, I know she has a fire to her because we've seen it not only back in her UFC days, but we've seen it in her initial run in WWE. We have seen her have a passion and a fire behind her promos before, and it's just not been there since she's come back. I've been waiting to see it. As of this recording, I am not watching Smackdown yet, so maybe on the go home show on Smackdown, she'll deliver this great fired up promo that we have not seen up to this point. But right now, I don't really care. But I do think they're going to have a very good match. We've seen the two of them have a match before at Survivor Series in 2018, and as I recall, that match was very excellent. I think of that night, that was the best match of the night. Arguably, if you compared it to Brock Lesnar and Daniel Bryan, but I believe that was the best match of the night and one of the better matches, not just women's matches, but matches period throughout that entire year. So I know these two women are capable of putting on a great match, and I think come WrestleMania on the big stage with all the attention and focus on them as potentially being the last official match to take place on this night of WrestleMania Night 1, I think they're going to go out there and deliver. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of diehard Charlotte Flair, I was going to say fans, but it could be stans too. But I think a lot of diehard fans of Charlotte Flair are going to want her to win this match, but I just do not see it happening. I am predicting Ronda Rousey for the win here. So, but that is not going to be the end of the show. Oh no. I believe what will end the show will be the KO show, the Kevin Owens show with special guest Stone Cold Steve Austin. The single thing that I am looking forward to the most out of anything happening at WrestleMania this year. When the news came out all those months ago that Stone Cold Steve Austin was going to return at WrestleMania to actually wrestle, I didn't fully believe it. And as of now, it does not look like that is what's going to happen. I know there's been other reports saying that, Stone Cold's getting into ring shape and all that. I don't think he's going to actually wrestle a match here. But I do think he is going to be a lot more physical than just bam, boom, stunner than he is most times we see him when he returns to WWE. The buildup of this whole thing from Kevin Owens having every time he comes out, he badmouths Texas, talks trash about Texas. All that was just very mundane, average stuff. But the stuff that Kevin Owens has been doing on TV these last few weeks, since the KO show announcement was made official, has been great. Stone Cold Kevin Owens a few weeks ago on Raw and playing with the crowd with the Austin theme song playing, getting the fans all riled up only to not come out. Very reminiscent of what Shawn Michaels did with Bret Hart's theme song in Montreal back on Raw in 2005. One of the best segments in the history of the show. Kevin Owens did his own little spin of it here, and I thought he did a great job. And Kevin Owens on the mic is always great, but he's really been delivering these last few weeks. And I expect this to be a very entertaining segment. I think there's going to be a lot of boos for Kevin Owens, a lot of strong cheers for Steve Austin, many what chants going back and forth. I can see them having a good back and forth. But once the physicality starts, I think it's going to be not just Kevin Owens throwing a few punches and then Austin dropping him. No, I think it's going to be a legit back and forth brawl, street fight type thing where Kevin Owens will get Austin down. He will hit some of his big moves. He might even hit him with a pop-up powerbomb. I do not think Kevin Owens is going to hit a stunner on Steve Austin. No, he might attempt a stunner, but I believe at that point, that is when Austin will make the big comeback, He'll throw his punches, might get a Thez press, all that stuff, stomping a mud hole in his ass, all that good stuff. And in the end, it will end with wham, boom, stunner from Stone Cold Steve Austin, beer bash, and sending the crowd home happy. He might even hit him with 2 or 3 stunners total, but that is my prediction. If we were all duped and we are going to actually get a match between Steve Austin and Kevin Owens in some fluke thing, I think it'll be something very quick, maybe 5 minutes, no more than 10. And in the end, still, Steve Austin will win. But I don't think this will be an actual match. I just think it'll be a very extended brawl that Kevin Owens will get a good amount of offense in, but it will lead only to Steve Austin standing tall and sending the crowd home happy. And for people who may be upset about the idea of a talk show segment closing a WrestleMania night, first of all, there's 2 nights of WrestleMania, so it's not even that big of a deal. But most of all, Steve Austin is the biggest draw outside of the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns match that they have for WrestleMania this year. Stone Cold, his name alone, is one of the bigger draws that they have for people to buy tickets, to sign up for Peacock, what have you. And majority of the people in that crowd are looking forward to one thing, particularly on this night. They are looking forward to one thing, and that is Stone Cold Steve Austin. If you put this segment on in the middle of the show, I think the rest of the show that will follow it will suffer. So you better off just closing the show with it. It's going to get the most heat out of anything that happens on this show. It's going to get the most investment from the crowd. So save it for the end. Save it for the main event spot. And I believe that is exactly what they're going to do. So moving on to night 2, which compared to night 1 is not the strongest looking card, but they could have some surprises in there. I believe night 2 will open up with the triple threat match for the Raw Tag Team Championships. RK Bro defending against the Alpha Academy and the Street Profits. RK Bro just won back the tag team titles a few weeks ago on Raw. I don't see them losing them here, so I'm going to go ahead and pick them. If by some chance they do lose those titles, I think now would be a good time if you want to pull the trigger on breaking this team up. You could do it. I know people are thinking, oh, well, Randy Orton's just going to drop Riddle with an RKO at any second. But I have been one of the very few people who have thrown the idea out there of what if Riddle turns on Randy Orton. There is a way to turn the Riddle character, the silly, goofy character that he is, into this unlikable, which I think there's people who already don't like him, but this just annoying, unbearable douchebag of a character. We all thought that Sami Zayn as a heel wouldn't work, and Sami Zayn is one of the most entertaining acts in the entire company. And he's been a heel for the last several years. I almost never want to see him go babyface again in this company. I think Riddle could pull off a very similar character. So if they were going to pull the trigger on one of these guys turning on the other, I would say go with Riddle and give him a chance to be even more annoying and play up that role a little bit more. Because quite frankly, you're not going to get the fans to boo Randy Orton for that long. They'll play along for a while, but every single time, whether he likes being a babyface or not, the crowd turns him babyface anyway. So, but I don't expect that to happen on this show. If it does, hey, great. But I'm predicting that it's just going to be a great opening match, and RK Bro will retain their tag team titles. I think up next will be Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory, a match that just came right the hell out of nowhere after Vince McMahon appeared on Pat McAfee's show and told him that he was going to have a match at WrestleMania. Now, if you remember around that time, there were some reports going around that the match at WrestleMania was going to be Pat McAfee versus Vince McMahon. And thank God that's not happening, because Vince McMahon has no business wrestling in 2022. So it's better off that if Pat McAfee is going to have a match at WrestleMania against someone handpicked, so to speak, from Vince McMahon, it makes sense that it's Austin Theory, since Austin Theory has been under the tutelage of Mr. McMahon on television for the past several months. So This would be a big spot for him. Pat McAfee is very good. He's a very good commentator. He's very good in the ring. He was very good in those few matches that he had in NXT, the one takeover match against Adam Cole. He appeared in a War Games match. None of this you would never know if you are watching SmackDown, where they have never once brought this up. To my knowledge, they have not brought this up at all. The fact that Pat McAfee has wrestled before. But I think he is going to put on a great show like he did in those matches. I think Austin Theory is one of the future top guys in WWE if they build him up correctly. And I think putting him in a prime position like this to beat Pat McAfee at WrestleMania might just do the trick. So going with Austin Theory to get the win here. The Women's Tag Team Championship match, the Fatal 4-Way for the Women's Tag Team titles. Carmella and Queen Zelina are going to defend their titles against the teams of Sasha Banks and Naomi, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and Natalya and Shayna Baszler. They're not doing a Women's Battle Royal this year, so this is the next best thing, I guess, to get all the women in one big match on the show, just to say they had as many big names in the women's division accounted for on the show. I do think there's enough quality talent in this match to put on a very fun match. And I believe that the team to win this match is going to be the team that was first announced as the challengers for the tag team titles randomly, albeit randomly, but they were the first team announced, and that is Sasha Banks and Naomi. That would be Sasha Banks' first win at WrestleMania. She's been in this company several years. She's been on the main roster for several years now. She has yet to win a WrestleMania match. I believe that is going to take place on this show. If it doesn't, then that's a hell of a story to build up to for next year. But my prediction, Sasha and Naomi win the tag team titles. Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville. After that, this has been very entertaining. Sami Zayn is always great. Johnny Knoxville, he's done his part. I have been very pleasantly surprised by Johnny Knoxville and what we've seen of him both in the ring, on the mic, and in these little videos that he sends in, plus the Jackass theme song. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. That's one of the best TV theme songs of all time. So he's done his part, and I think this is going to be a car crash match. A lot of bells and whistles, it's anything goes. So I think that would be an excuse for Johnny Knoxville to actually beat Sami Zayn here. But I don't think that's going to happen. There's 3 technical celebrity matches that are taking place between nights 1 and night 2. You would think of the 3 celebrity matches, one of the celebrities are going to win, but I would like to think that WWE realizes that they can't have celebrities go over on their own talent, and that the actual in-ring full-time talent are going to win their matches. I already predicted that Rey Mysterio and Dominic are going to beat Miz and Logan Paul. I see Austin Theory beating Pat McAfee, and the right decision here is Sami Zayn beating Johnny Knoxville. And just think, all those weeks ago when we first thought that this match was going to be for the Intercontinental Championship, because Sami Zayn was champion at the time, many people complained and were upset about the idea of the Intercontinental Championship being defended in a match involving a celebrity, an outsider. Not me, because I knew that as ridiculous as it would be for Johnny Knoxville to challenge for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania, at the very least, the Intercontinental Championship would actually be defended at WrestleMania, because it has not been defended on pay-per-view in several months. In fact, it has not been defended on a pay-per-view since WrestleMania last year. And now, look where we are. Ricochet beat Sami Zayn, but Ricochet is wrestling on SmackDown, and Sami Zayn makes it onto the WrestleMania card. So that just shows you how they feel about their championships. But yes, Sami Zayn is my pick to win this match. Up next, AJ Styles versus Edge. I'm excited for the match, but I can't say the build-up has done a whole lot for me, because they made the decision to turn Edge heel, which I'm not entirely against. Edge has always been a tremendous heel. it was only a matter of time before he had a full-fledged heel turn since his return back to the company. They kind of teased it last year, but the fans were not having it. They were fully behind Edge last year, and so we never really got it. So now we got it here. And I completely respect Edge for turning heel and almost reinventing himself, a la Chris Jericho. Very reminiscent of that. Edge coming out wearing the suits, has the purple reddish lighting. He changed his theme song, which is a pretty good theme song. The Other Side or The Other Me, whatever, by Alter Bridge. I like it so much I don't know the name of it, but it's a very good song, and it fits this new persona that he has. I'm just not really a fan of this new persona. But I think this feud between Edge and AJ Styles is going to continue past WrestleMania for at least one, if not two more pay-per-views after WrestleMania. So with this being the first match, I expect it to be good. Edge versus AJ Styles is a match that I've wanted to see since Edge initially returned. So I think they're going to have a great match, but I think Edge is going to get the win, probably through some kind of shenanigans and cheating, but Edge will get the win in this match. Up next, a match that was just made a few days ago, Omas versus Bobby Lashley. Omas has been begging for some real competition, and he got it in the form of the returning almighty Bobby Lashley, who we thought would potentially miss WrestleMania due to a shoulder injury he sustained from Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble. He got taken out of the Elimination Chamber. He's been gone for the past few weeks, but he had a miraculous recovery, and now he's back to face Omas here. Conspicuous by his absence on Raw when Bobby Lashley returned was MVP. But when they showed the match graphic, they showed MVP was in Bobby Lashley's corner. I only point that out because it plays into how I predict this is going to go down. I think at WrestleMania, before this match ever takes place, we are going to see a backstage segment between MVP and Lashley, teasing some type of dissension between the two of them, which we have seen in the past. They kind of got away from it, but we have seen it before. There is a history of it. So I think MVP will come out with Lashley. He'll be in his corner. And as Lashley is taking down Omas, this is a guy who has yet to be really taken down off of his feet for any long period of time. So I think Lashley will get him down, and he might even go for a spear. Might even hit it. But as Lashley is looking to go in for the kill and finish off Omas, I think behind the referee's back or something along those lines, MVP on the outside will either trip up Bobby Lashley or hit him with his cane. The point is, MVP will screw over Bobby Lashley and help Omas get the win, and MVP will become the new manager for Omas. That is my prediction here, and I think this will lead to a big babyface turn for Bobby Lashley, who was already halfway there. When he returned on Raw, he got a big ovation from the crowd, so I think the crowd is ready to cheer for Bobby Lashley, and I think someone like Omas, who the company is putting a lot of muscle behind in terms of building him up, I think he is better off having someone speak for him in a manager role, and I think MVP would be a good fit for him. I love the Lashley MVP pairing. I loved it in TNA. I loved it through the Hurt Business, and I love it now. But I think you can get away with moving past that now and pairing MVP off with Omas and setting up Bobby Lashley for a big babyface run. So my prediction is not only that Omas is going to win, but he will do so with help from MVP, who will turn on Lashley and join up with Omas. And in the main event, the big winner take all championship unification match, the biggest match in WrestleMania history. Only not really, but that's what they're saying. Brock Lesnar, the WWE champion, and Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion. This is a match we've seen several times before. We've seen it several times at WrestleMania. It was the main event of WrestleMania 31, and it was a tremendous match involving the triple threat, or the match turning into a triple threat due to Seth Rollins cashing in Money in the Bank. Great moment, great match. They had another match at WrestleMania 34. Not so great. In fact, it was quite shocking how the crowd reacted to that match, but had a very shocking finish with when everyone thought that Roman Reigns was going to win, Brock Lesnar was the one to win. So now we arrive here. They've had a bunch of other matches in between. We're here. The championships both being defended. One man's going to walk out with both titles. Who's it going to be? I find it very hard to really pick, only from a personal standpoint, because I love these guys. I really have been digging Cowboy Brock Lesnar, babyface Brock, who has just been his natural self on TV, or at least another side of himself that we have yet to see on WWE television. He's been great. Roman Reigns has been on the run of his life these last few years as Universal Champion. Had the bloodline, got Paul Heyman with him. He's great. But it really comes down to the fact, and I don't know how much they really shed light on this, but those previous two WrestleMania matches, one interrupted by a cash-in, the other one, Brock Lesnar won. Roman Reigns has yet to beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And there is a lot of doubt as to whether this is going to be the end of Brock's run. Is he going to go home? Is he going to take a little break after WrestleMania? It's not a guarantee he is going to be around much longer, or at least for the time being. He's been on TV basically every week for the last few months, but it's very up in the air as to whether that will still continue to be happening. Whereas Roman Reigns, he's not going anywhere. And Roman Reigns is someone who I can see them wanting to appear not only on SmackDown, but also on Raw and go back and forth between both shows. So I would love to see Cowboy babyface Brock get the win, but my head is telling me Roman Reigns is going to walk out as the unified champion. But I do not believe that is how WrestleMania 38 will go off the air. I think we got that image last year with Roman winning, and Roman will win again this year. But I think instead of going off the air with Roman Reigns celebrating, I think it will instead be an appearance from The Rock to come face to face with Roman Reigns, get the huge pop, get the big ovation, and tease a match between The Rock and Roman Reigns, ultimately setting it up for next year's WrestleMania. Not necessarily with a championship involved. I think Roman will lose whatever championship he has by that point. But I do believe, whether a title is involved or not, your main event for WrestleMania 39 in Los Angeles is going to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns. And I think the first setup for that will be The Rock upstaging Roman Reigns after the biggest victory of his career. The Rock will come out, steal the spotlight from him, get face to face with him, and force him to back down and get out of the ring, leaving The Rock to pose and all that in front of the crowd. So that is my prediction for how that will go. Roman Reigns will win and become the unified champion, but ultimately it'll be The Rock who will stand tall at the end of WrestleMania. And that's the WrestleMania card. It's very long when you combine both nights, but I expect good things from it. WrestleMania, it can be very good, it can be very bad, it can be somewhere in between, but you cannot really get past the excitement for it. I know the buildup hasn't really been all that great, but there is still, when we are mere days and hours, probably depending on when you're listening to this, away from WrestleMania, and there is just a certain excitement as a longtime wrestling fan, which I'm sure a lot of you can agree with. There is a certain level of excitement that is felt when you're this close to WrestleMania and all the matches, all the events that are taking place, all the different things that are happening leading up to WrestleMania. It's not just WrestleMania. There's a Ring of Honor show on Friday night. There's an NXT show earlier in the day on Saturday. There's all this crazy stuff happening around the same time this weekend, and it just makes things a lot more fun. And that is really what you cling on to. Of course, when WWE ultimately disappoints you in the end, it just doesn't really seem fair. But I think there is still just a certain level of fun and excitement surrounding the idea of WrestleMania that is hard to ignore. So I think that excitement will carry me into both nights as I cover both nights. So this, obviously, the predictions will go up this Saturday afternoon. Once the Takeover Stand and Deliver show is over, I will be putting up a review of that. I will be coming back later that night to talk about WrestleMania Night 1. I will be coming back the next night to talk about WrestleMania Night 2. And then on Monday night, talking about the Raw after WrestleMania. So a lot of DerekJ Speaks for this WrestleMania weekend. And I look forward to talking to all of you about everything that's going to go down at WrestleMania this year. My thoughts are with every other content creator and YouTuber and podcaster who is covering all of the events that are taking place this weekend. May God be with you. But as for me, that is enough for now. I will see all of you talking about NXT and WrestleMania this weekend. So until then, take care.